So today I have a science writer called Matt Ridley, and he's been writing on science for quite a long time. I believe he has a PhD in something or other. But he's a clever chap and he knows what he's talking about, and he's been monitoring the global consensus with regard to climate change and energy and this path that we are on that the British government wants us to take. So he was asked a question in a recent podcast about his views on what's happening globally, and this is the answer he gave. I thought it was quite interesting.
Where do you think the climate technocracy stands, or the climatocracy, if that's not too ridiculous a word? The kind of global, I guess the global enforcers of this, the people who organize the UN conferences, the people who issue those statements, the people who draft the Paris Agreement, which I've never quite understood what the purpose of the Paris Agreement is. It seems to have very little purpose. Because of Trump is once again in his second administration standing up to those people or tussling with them, having arguments, pulling out of Paris and so on. Do those global institutions carry much weight anymore? Apart from amongst those kind of influential sections of society who go to all these conferences, who issue these statements, but nothing really comes of them, how much of an impact do you think they have on day-to-day politics, day-to-day life?
I think the process of summits to have giant talking shops about this is slowly dying.
Yeah.
An enormous number of people still go to them, but the last one really was a farce, the one in Baku, partly because the host used it to lambast the European Union and others for not supporting his oil industry. But also because Keir Starmer was, I think, the only head of state of a major country who turned up. Whereas 15 years ago you had Obama and Xi Jinping, maybe, I don't know, those kind of people, there in the room at the time. So the ridiculous farce, that the feeding frenzy that is that process, the writing of the 5-yearly climate assessments, which became more and more political and less scientific, particularly the summary for policymakers, is pretty badly discredited, etc. So there's good climate scientists working in academia. There's good energy policy people working in business. There are some reasonable people in governments working on things that could help, fusion power, new kinds of nuclear, etc. Are, I think, going to make a difference. But what's really happened in this country is that the whole thing has become identified with the unreliables industry, wind and solar, as I don't call them renewables because, hydro and things are renewables. It's the unreliables is the feature of those two, because you can't rely on them for power when you need it. And they are trousering enormous sums. The landowners, I'm a landowner, I don't do this stuff, but I rather wish I did, because I'd be seriously rich if I had wind turbines all over my land. The regressive nature of this industry in terms of sluicing money from the poor to the rich, because it comes off electricity bills, is for me the really shocking aspect of this.
And I could put up lots of graphs at this point. I could show you how much more it costs to use energy in this country than it does, say, in America or other places around the world. We are one of the most expensive countries in the world to run any type of power because of the subsidies that the energy suppliers are levying onto the people with which to fund these huge projects, in addition to the government subsidising these things extremely heavily. And as Mr. Ridley said, there is a massive industry surrounding the energy industry, and you may ask why that is. Well, one of the reasons why it is when you have these huge government contracts in place, first of all, the government just shells the money out. And if there's anybody that you want on your pay list, on the people that owe you money, It's the British government, because the British government pays their bills. So these companies that are, funneling these huge amounts of cash through their books going into these wealthy landowners, there is a huge industry surrounding the energy industry with people who have absolutely nothing to do with creating the energy or distributing the energy out to people in the country or billing the people for the energy. And that should give you a little indicator into the amount of money that's being funneled through all of these things. And I think in a historical perspective, we are going to look back on this time and look back to people like Keir Starmer telling the world that we are going to be the leaders in this green energy revolution. And I have no idea why Mr. Starmer would want Britain to be a leader in clean energy revolution. Why not just be in the top 10, or why not just be with the rest of the pack? But as Mr. Ridley said, it was only our Prime Minister, he was the only leader that it was at the last climate summit. The rest of the leaders aren't going anymore. America is out and they are booming. Their economy is booming. Meanwhile, we've got Ed Miliband here, the most expensive British politician to have ever lived to the British people. This man has cost us more with him just being alive and being a politician than any other politician in history. And that is an observable, evidential, provable fact. And his zealotry, and that's what it is, it's zealotry. His zealotry in pushing this agenda forward because he believes he wants to be the man. He wants to be the man that people look back in history and go, you know what? The people didn't like it, but he pushed it through. And he done what was right. Except that I don't believe that's what history is going to prove. History, I think, is going to show that Britain almost bankrupted itself using out-of-date technology. In essence, at some point, fusion technology or other technology will overtake the current solar panels and other wind technology that we've got. But we're not there yet, but it is going to happen. And when that happens, every penny that Britain has spent covering our green lands with these solar panels and wind farms, they are all going to become redundant, because the answer is not wind and it's not solar power in its current format, mainly because we can't dispose of the solar panels either. So there's a problem in disposing them in terms of the green agenda there. The wind doesn't work properly and it's not going to get us there, but we are pushing and pushing with all of this heat pumps and all the rest of it. And this one issue alone, if we dropped this one issue, this country would be way better off financially, would be in a far better monetary state than we are now. And what really annoys me is that the people who are fronting the bill for Mad Ed is the normal families in this country, the normal people who wake up and go to work and then come home and pay their energy bill. And just like me, and probably just like you, you've watched your energy bill over the last 4 years more than double. That's double over the last 4 years. And over the next 4, you can expect that to happen. Again, I'm afraid, until we get a party in power that's going to just stop all of this, because this is, at this stage, it's off the reservation lunacy. It's never going to work. And this is literally bankrupting this country. And, history's not going to be kind on this man, nor should it be. Thanks very much for your time.